Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well this evening. Tonight I've got a couple of terrifying Dogman encounters that I'd like to share with you. Before we get into those encounters, I've got a couple of links I'd also like to share with you. My brand new Patreon account just started up last night. That helps keep this channel free and keep it going. Also, my PayPal link is in the description, and my merchandise link. As I've said before, I'm going to be designing new shirts for this channel, and I'll let you know when they're up. Also, my second channel's link is in the description. That channel is designed just for creepypasta, voice acting, and fan fiction. I haven't done much with it lately, but I'm going to start working on it again. And with that, guys, let's get into these Dogman encounters, shall we? Our first Dogman encounter of the evening. The following incident occurred in 1977 at an undisclosed location in West Virginia. A boy growing up in a farming community in West Virginia had called his parents to tell them that he was staying at his grandparents'. He recalled that his grandfather was agitated about something and over supper asked if he saw any strange animals in the area. He hadn't, so the grandfather alerted him to the fact there is a predator on the loose and he should be cautious. Before bed that same evening, he observed his grandfather sitting by the living room window with a gun. His grandfather told him to lock the windows in his room. He assumed there was a bear or a coyote running around. He went to sleep but was woken by the sound sometime later. He opened his eyes and looked out the window. He saw nothing. He eventually got up and went into the living room where he saw his grandfather sleeping in the chair by the window, the gun at his side. He went into the bathroom to get some water, and when he came back out, he heard something growling. To him, it sounded like it was coming from the window the grandfather was sleeping in front of. As he approached the window, he noticed that it was open 2 or 3 inches, just enough to get the gun through it. He looked and saw nothing in the window. He then went to get some candy from a bowl in the living room, and that's when he observed the claw coming through the window, palm facing down as if it was going to push the window up. The witness clearly saw 3 fingers. The middle finger was the longest. Years later, he claimed the fingers reminded him of claws of the creature in Krampus, specifically the scene where he pointed his finger in the woman's face. He screamed in fright, which woke his grandfather up. The creature also screamed. The grandfather went into fight mode and proceeded to hit the creature's fingers with the gun. He then grabbed a knife from a nearby and also stabbed at the fingers. At that moment, the grandmother rushed into the room and turned on the outside light, which lit up the yard. Then the boy could see the creature clearly standing in the window. He even looked into its eyes. The creature took off running just as the grandfather raised his gun to shoot it. According to the boy, the creature appeared to be angry and was growling as it ran. The boy acknowledged that he had wet himself during this exchange. At some point, the grandmother stated that the creature had returned. "It's back," she said, which surprised the boy. The grandparents proceeded to tell him that the creature had been seen around the property 3 years early but had left. They assumed it had been killed. It had only started appearing again some 2 weeks earlier. This upset the boy as he had been playing on the property and should have been alerted to it. The grandparents told him that in 1974, the grandfather was in a deer stand bow hunting when a strange creature attempted to climb the tree and enter the stand through the door latch. Grandfather shot at it and stabbed at it, but it never stopped coming. Eventually, it attempted to poke its nose through the opening in the stand. That's when the grandfather stabbed it right in the nose. It managed to get a paw through and slashed the grandfather's leg. The creature fled after that, and the scar was visible on the nose of the creature standing at the window. As well, the grandfather also had his scar on his leg. The grandfather claimed he waited in the stand for 3 hours before feeling safe enough to climb down and leave. They had never heard of the Dogman at the time, so they just referred to it as a werewolf. Within 2 weeks of the window encounter, numerous farm animals began turning up dead. The grandfather became worried and began driving the grandson to school and picking him up when he returned. 2 weeks later, the witness remembered the grandfather failed to show. He walked home and saw the truck parked. He assumed that his grandfather had simply forgotten. As he entered the barn, he found his grandfather dead. He had been killed. The boy couldn't bring himself to go into detail about it. He then notified family members. Later, the police determined that he had been attacked by an unknown animal. Within 2 weeks later, the grandmother had left the property and never returned. She passed away in 2010. The state claimed the property for unpaid taxes. Our next Dogman encounter comes from a subscriber, which I'm going to leave anonymous because I didn't ask him if he wanted me to use his name. Alright, Jeff, I'm going to give you the info on my encounter. Last July of last year, I went up to the southern port of Norway where I have a little holiday cabin. The cabin is situated out and above a little town of A, approximately 65 kilometers from the port of Kristiansand to the north. To get to the cabin, you have to drive up from A on a paved road which takes you up into the hills. You pass lakes on the way and a handful of houses and lots of forest and water runs. My cabin is on the very end of that area, 16 kilometers into the wild. Besides one other cabin that is situated 500 meters away and only occupied from time to time, I am all by myself out there. My cabin is above a small lake resting on a slope. On the third day of my arrival, I went outside on the cabin's deck to have a cigarette. It was about 10 p.m. and still very light outside because in the summer months the sun really never goes down. I heard noises, water splashing and grunts coming from the lake below. The shore is about 30 meters from my deck to the cabin. I walked up to the edge of the deck to see what it was because I was getting freaked out. When I looked down to the shore, I saw a hunched over, hairy creature trying to pull a dead moose onto the shore by the neck. The thing had turned around and has apparently noticed me standing there looking at it. It had swung its head around violently, giving me a grim kind of look, turned its back to me, and casually ran out into the bushes. The creature was about man size, 180 centimeters or so. Weight, I would guess, no more than 250 pounds. It had a protruding snout like a wolf's, upright ears, not too big, and was covered in taft, like black and brown hair. Arms and legs were normal size, legs were straight, and overall appearance was pretty slim-bodied. I went back inside the cabin, panicked, and locked and barricaded the back door and back windows. I went for the axe that I kept in the utility room by the front door, sat in a chair by the back door, lights only the oven, fireplace was lit. I couldn't believe and make out what it was, and I freaked out even more, realizing that far down south in Norway there are basically no wolves, no bears. 10 minutes in, I heard the most radical howls I have ever heard. They sounded mad, crazed in a way. I didn't even try to get to the car, which was right out in front of my house. I was petrified and could not shut one eye the whole night. The howls and commotion outside in the bushes went on pretty much all night. The next day I carefully left the cabin and went for the car to head into town. Problem is, I have no internet or any connection out there. I went straight to the police station to file a report on what I saw. The officials told me that it must have been a big dog trying to put me off. They didn't laugh as I had expected. They did not look me in my eyes either and started talking to each other in Norwegian. They looked at each other in the eyes, however, seeming a bit nervous. I contemplated outside because I was getting pissed at being put off like that. Received no copy of the report or anything like that. The last few days of my stay, nothing else happened except that the carcass of the moose was picked up by someone. Nothing left at the scene. I checked with the local and asked him if there are any bears or wolves that far south, just to confirm that what I had already knew. He replied, no. Besides that, I forgot to mention that the creature casually went off running on 2 legs. To this day, even though it's gotten better, I feel paranoid, even around familiar places like my house, yard, and whatnot. Only in these groups I've found a little peace in listening to Vic's show, which I found out about when I was searching online after my encounter, back before all this happened. I was the type of person that would laugh at the thought of these cryptids and whatnot. I was totally thrown off the plate, thinking that I was going mad, to question my sanity, and to this day, I have a hard time believing any of it myself. I don't want to. Wow, that is an awesome encounter. He is a friend of mine. We are friends on Facebook, and we were talking the other day, and out of the blue, he sent me the story. I've heard it. I've always wanted to narrate it. I didn't want to ask him. I didn't want to push it, you know? And then, bam, there it was. And I'm honored to read his story because it is crazy. Also, the farmer getting killed by this Dogman. One of the very few stories I've heard, besides the one in Albany, Oregon, I believe. The woman camping by the river. Her dogs were said to have killed her, but they remained by the side of her the whole time when the police were investigating. It was clearly a Dogman that destroyed this woman, her tent, and for some reason didn't attack the dogs. But back to these 2 encounters. Just awesome. 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 Terrifyingly awesome, but wow. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed these encounters. I really enjoyed bringing them to you. And like I said, I'm going to keep doing more research. I'm going to bring some more cryptids to you guys. A little bit of, toss it up a little bit. Some Goatman, some fairies. Not Tinkerbell fairies either. The pretty sinister ones. And some other things. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed these stories. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great night, guys. And be safe out there, would you?